What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Binge Empire and our coverage of Spartacus, House of Ashur. So, Binge Empire, part of the Bingetown TV podcast network. We're covering a lot of stuff right now on Binge Empire. You know, Spartacus, we appreciate everyone that is tuning in to all of these episodes, but we're doing a lot here on Binge Empire. So, we just want to take a little bit of time at the top here to kind of shout all that out, what's going on now, what's coming down the pike as well. So, right now, we've got Spartacus, obviously, because we're coming to you live in your earballs. We've also got Fallout. Fallout just started on Amazon Prime. And then A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is coming on HBO Max in January. That's, I believe, January 18th. We've got Industry. That's also coming on HBO Max in early January. So those are 4 shows that are going to be coming simultaneously through this Binge Empire feed. And we would love to have you for all of them. All the ones that you're watching, we will be here giving coverage to all of those shows. So we would appreciate it if you stick with us. But all of that out of the way, another, in my opinion, great episode of Spartacus, House of Ashur. Episode 6, like I mentioned, Empty Things. I am Kyle. I am, I believe, your host essentially for this episode recording. I'm joined by Paul and Luke, the same trio we've been chugging along throughout this season. I think we're just going to get into this, if I'm not mistaken. I think this was kind of like a chess piece episode in a way. You know, we're not getting a ton of fighting. We've come off the emotional, the adrenaline high of the Primus, and now we're moving into the immediate aftermath. We got some scheming, we've got some people doing some things, and we've got a hell of an ending that I'm quite interested to talk about. So without further ado, let's just get into this. I think the first kind of packaged conversation we can have is going to be this kind of post-Primus night situation. So we're just dealing with the aftermath of Achilles' injury. So we've got Ashur dealing, let's say, in quotes, dealing with his medicus and his performance on the issue. We also have Ashur and Doctoria kind of hatching a plan to talk to Opiter. So Opiter heads over to, or I'm sorry, Doctoria heads to Opiter's villa to kind of bargain for a medicus, and they kind of hatch a plan themselves. We also have some Cornelia, hijinks happening early in this episode. I know we've talked about all of those things in the past. So just want to give them space.
Right off the bat, Ashur hitting us with a hell of a quote. The gods bless us with one hand and ram fist up ass with the other. I'm just like, we could spend all day just reading the script because some of the quotes are just incredible. But yeah, I mean, classic conversation by the cliff. You always got to be wary, no matter who it is. And it did show Ashur's temper that we haven't really seen since, episode 1. We've seen him kind of flip here and there, but nothing as bad. So just a reminder that he has that, feisty side.
The cliff will never cease to be awesome, and that is the direct end of this Medicus. But I'm really happy that they put the time to focus on what we briefly talked about. Like, the cut to Achilles' hand was so gruesome in episode 5. And I made the joke, like, is she ever going to be able to hold a sword again? They almost talked about cutting it off this episode to save her from it festering. I like how this whole thing almost mirrored the way that Crixus went through his recovery from the battle with Theocles all the way back in season 1. We're like, yeah, he's probably not waking up and he's fevered and all this stuff. But I think like it played out in a good way. They didn't need to spend too much time on it. You got to see them like stitch it back. It was very gross, very Spartacus-esque, and I thought it was very well done. And then it gives us a perfect reason to send Chorus back to his homeboy Opiter, where they need a new medicus, and that's going to be the favor that they're going to call upon. That conversation, I almost don't even want to waste time talking about it too much, just because we know where it's going to end in the long term. But this is when the first seed is planted about the possibility of Chorus permanently leaving Ashur and going over to House Opiter when he decides to leave Capua. So, I mean, I guess there is a little bit to talk about there, because I wrote in my notes that it is very smart and almost meta of Opiter to realize that, yeah, Caesar hates me and there's a chance that he's going to be back one day, and I just don't want to be here. And I think that's just genius. Like, he recognized the threat level at the party from last episode and was going to just ditch. He's willing to leave all of his slaves behind, all of his workers behind, the ludus that he has, everything. So it's nice that we had the sunshines and rainbows in our mind when there's conversations happening. Like, there was a path forward to happiness and happily ever after for Chorus and Opiter, but of course it doesn't go that way. But the other last thing I'll bring up is that the information gets spilled that Opiter knew about the plan. Not that it mattered that much because Caesar and Crassus were like the real hands behind the whole market fight. But that does get talked about here. But a great way to start the episode, escalate things, and make Chorus and Operator storyline important for episode 6.
Yeah, I tried getting that information. It felt like it would be a bigger deal in the moment. Him and Asher have kind of a quick conversation about it, where Asher just kind of says, "I'm in the same boat as you," but he's also kind of combative about it. And my only thought about that, I guess it's that it's just making it more plausible. We're just getting this kind of reminder of kind of their actual relationship, Asher and Chorus. It's been a little bit good lately because of some success, but at the end of the day, they kind of really don't totally vibe, and it would make sense why Chorus is willing to kind of take this step with Operator. Operator kind of says to him, did you really want to spend the rest of your life with Asher? You do love the arena that much. And I think that gets Sartori's wheels spinning a little bit. Then he's kind of in the dark about this stuff that happened. And although Asher wasn't involved, he didn't really tell him. And Asher was kind of like, you know what I want you to know, what you need to know. Mm-hmm. And that off of the back of talking to Operator, I guess, makes the decision that he makes potentially a little bit easier. I don't really know. I think that's a good point, though, that you're saying about this. There are some things that happen here that, like, we could have conversations early in this that then kind of become moot a little bit later in the episode, or that it's, better reserved for a later point in the episode. So the last comment I'll have on these 3 scenes is that I just like, again, this kind of world building that's going on. So I don't remember exactly if they said it outright in other episodes, but Cornelia, they put a lot of respect on Cornelia's family. So Asher mentions here that Cornelia is even higher up than Caesar's family. So her family is higher on kind of that political totem pole than Caesar's even. So like a lot of their power comes from her specifically as a couple, which is just an interesting thing to do. It's a good way to build her character even further as well.
And she definitely loves to flaunt that power. And I think she made herself more hateable and in a way likable as a character in this show to me. Like she's now up there with Kasudia, right? You could argue that like certain characters are going to agree and disagree about that statement, but who loves this girl is Messia. She's loving this ownership change. She's so over Halara and Asher. I think she's marked for death. Where I think each of us have guessed, or at least 2 of us have guessed Messia dying already, and we're it's going to be right one of these episodes where she's definitely Halara is going to take her out. I think there's just such a building rivalry that there's no way it doesn't end in blood.
Yeah, the rift is evident. The dirty looks are frequent, and the hatred in Halara's eyes whenever Messia is like treating Cornelia as like Domina and all this stuff. Like we'll get into it later, but I really do like how they built that over the first few episodes of the season, because I really didn't know what they were going to do with the "I'm in love with you" aspect for Messia, but they really turned it into something intriguing where anything could happen. Anybody could snap and kill anybody. And then I love the way Asher speaks after Kasudia gets out of the bath. He's like, drain it and have it refreshed. I will not go in a bath tainted by her passions. I was like, what a way with words.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. All right, so I think the next kind of conversation we can have is going to be, again, Cornelia-centric. The next day after this, so there's a bunch of scenes throughout this episode that is just Achilles suffering, so we don't need to talk about them now. We can wait till we kind of get the conclusion of all that a little bit later. But this next day is pretty much headlined by 2 things here. The first one being Cornelia taking the reins of the House of Caesar / House of Ashur, and it becoming more of this pleasure pad. And, she takes the 3 gladiators that they choose, and they have a little day with them. And then the second part of that is going to be Ashur and Viridia downstream from that have some really nice moments together. So I think maybe we could take the Cornelia and the Kasudia and kind of the schemy aspect of it, and then we can maybe talk about the Ashur and the Viridia of it all, because I think then that maybe leads us into the Gabinius conversation that happens a bit after that.
I mean, classic season 1 stuff of Spartacus here. Remove your Bulgaria. I've heard that before. I've definitely heard that. And it's funny because, Viridia is so she's untainted by all of this, the gladiator stuff that
Mm.
her mom and Cornelia are so obsessed with, and she is like trying to be polite, and meanwhile Cornelia is just like, yo, Asher, let me see what you got. And it just gets so out of hand so quick. And the flaunting of power is so ridiculous. The fact that Cornelia invites another house over to the house of Asher, which I know it's like the house of Caesar right now, but without even telling Asher, and all of a sudden he's hosting this other house and has to get naked in the middle of it. She is just abusing that name. And we didn't really see it last episode, but Luke already said it. She is cementing herself as like one of the most hateable characters.
I thought, and maybe I misunderstood the way that the scene was playing out, because this all gets started where the Romans are watching the prepping of like another tournament to see who's going to be the next champion while Achilles recovers. And I thought that they were going to have Asher be in the tournament. I didn't realize this was literally just porn for them right there and just like free use of these people. I thought they were going to just say like, let's make it something. We've seen things that are similar to this, like even Varro versus Spartacus, like in intimate settings. I thought they were pulling all these gladiators up to fight like that. I didn't realize what it was going to turn into, because what is the way she says it? She's like, present yourself in a more heroic fashion is the way that she requests what she requests to the gladiators. And it's just hilarious because then she's trying to like be all sexual with Kasudia, and it's just it's a season 1 Spartacus scene where this is the type of scene where I'm happy they saved it for the middle of the season, because all the people that would have hated this type of thing that maybe tried House of Asher that wasn't in love with Spartacus would already have dropped out. Like anybody that's going to be offended by this type of scene is already gone. So I don't think it was a risk, but I just think it's hilarious that this is the only show that I know off the top of my head that gets this far into the weeds with this type of thing. And I don't know how much it's exaggerated compared to what the Romans were doing back in the time, but you could convince me that they just view these people as objects and whatever their desires they want, like they just do. So yeah, she is the worst, and it's in a good way, because I think they're gonna maybe potentially save Gabinius and Kasudia for a later death, where I could see whatever the conclusion for Cornelia's storyline is. I think it's going to play out sooner before House of Gabinius. So I think it makes sense to introduce a high power Roman like this. Plus the stakes of doing anything to her will just change the entire landscape of the show, and that's always fun.
Yeah, I can't tell because they haven't been explicit about it yet how aware Kasudia, I think specifically, and then Cornelia and Gabinius himself are of the Ashur and Viridia stuff. I know that Kasudia had a line, I think maybe like episode 2 or 3. They haven't really brought it up so much, and maybe that's just not Cornelia's nature, although it seems like it would be anyway. She doesn't really care what she says, but this seemed calculated both from her own perspective of like, I'm the domina, this is the house of Caesar, and also it's very purposeful. Like Kasudia and Viridia are there trying to kind of add a little negativity maybe into whatever is going on between Ashur and Viridia. I feel like they can't not see it. They just haven't had a very explicit conversation about it, Cornelia and Kasudia.
Wait, let's talk about that. Because sorry, you have a good quote to bring up. Hit it, and then we're going to talk about that, because I don't know if I agree. But go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, she just pretty much shames Ashur even further because he's like, I'm a god of the arena, which we all know.
My victory's legend. I'm like, yeah, Asher.
Yeah, it's like whatever you say, bro. But when he, he drops his trow and she hits him with the impressive yet offering falls short of promised divinity, and then he gets dismissed, and it's just like, damn, in my own house, like that's just cold.
Oh yeah, it's gonna make her die earlier. I think the whole episode earlier just got cut off her lifespan because of that scene.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about what you just said, because I don't know if I agree. I feel like I want to agree that they should have clocked Viridia's obsession with Ashur, and I don't want to use obsession in a negative way because it actually is genuine. But I don't think anything has happened that would lead me to believe that. Even the conversation Ashur has with Gabinius later, I thought he was going to say, like, do you have your eyes on her or something? Is that why you're pushing back? And it never gets to that level. I still think that they disrespect Ashur so much that the idea of Viridia being with Ashur isn't even on their radar. Unless I'm missing some cues here. Paul, where do you land? Do you think that House Gabinius, meaning Gabinius and Kasudia, have noted this weird relationship that they
I would
have?
say yes. I think Kyle said it earlier. I think episode 3, they might have had a line where Gabinius and Kasudia are talking, and I think Gabinius hints towards saying, "Oh, it seems that the Syrian has caught Viridia's eye," something along those lines.
Mm.
So, I kind of agree with you that they think so lowly of Asher that the idea of joining houses never crosses their mind, but I think they are aware that Viridia has this, quote unquote crush on Asher
Okay.
given everything, but it's not going to lead to anything. It's just, a playful observation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I
would
can get
more.
behind that.
I think it's potentially two things. I mean, one, for sure, is that line. I don't think if that line wasn't in the show earlier and I didn't maybe even remember it, I would definitely be way more into your camp, Luke. I think the second thing is just like what happened in the Pulvinus at the Primus. I think it's just so obvious that Viridia is like riding for the House of Ashur. But I almost do think that they don't necessarily take it seriously. But
Yeah.
I think it's just like another way to kind of shame Ashur in that, like, I think they know that he's into her. I don't think they necessarily take her Viridia's interest in Ashur in any level of seriousness, because again, a theme of Viridia's episode in the conversation we'll get to later. I mean, immediately almost right here when she's talking to Ashur is that like women don't really get that kind of choice. Like, oh, it's
Hmm.
cute. Maybe you got a little crush on the Syrian, but like it doesn't matter. Like, there's zero chance you're marrying him. Like, you're an eligible Roman woman from the house of Gabinius. Like, you're gonna marry who we tell you to marry for political maneuverings, and like that's the end of it. So like we'll fucking embarrass this guy in front of you. Maybe you'll feel some type of way about it, and then we'll move on to actual matters.
And it doesn't work at all. And we can just talk about their two scenes that follow
Yep.
directly, because she basically goes to his office and says, "You got a nice
Dude,
cock." Like, that's what she
Yeah.
says. And it's so, I wish she, like, the way she says it's in the flowery language, but it's as crude as a Roman woman gets in this show. And it's just amazing because I love these two so much. And I just can't see it working out. I really hope so. Like, I think we talked about this, Kyle, maybe off podcast, where isn't there like a possible plan of like 4+ seasons of this show if everything goes right? Like, he has ideas, Stephen Knight has ideas, and if that's the case, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I really, really hope Viridia makes it out of this season.
yeah, definitely. I Give me 4 seasons of Viridia. I'm in. I love her so much. She
Yeah.
just is the only Roman right now who seems to not get off by just diminishing others and like talking down to them. Like, she doesn't like Gabinius. I guess he's not that way either. It's more Kasudia, but she's just like, yeah, this isn't right. Like, sorry about that. I love the term, the clucking hens again, but really they're, hawks circling prey, which I loved. And then, yeah, Luke, you hit the nail on the head. She comes in, she's just like, oh yeah, by the way, she was wrong. Your boasts hold true
Mhm.
in all regards. And Asher just smiles because, like, what do you say when somebody's like, "Hey, nice cock," right? Like, that's
Mhm.
and he's like, I gotta
Yeah.
go to Achilea. I see how she's doing. And Viridia's like, hey, let me go with because I would love to see such a sight in my, vision again. And he's even more like happy about that. He's like, yo, for getting naked forcibly in my own house, this day is really turning around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have just such an interesting. I mean, she's a little tipsy. She admits.
True.
I think that she's had a little bit of wine, which is perfect for us. I'm into it because they get into a very honest and I think authentic conversation. It's driven by her and her kind of thoughts on her situation, and I was quite surprised when she says, my grief is kind of shifting away from like my husband, and moving more towards like the fact that I'm kind of lost in the world at this point, and like my purpose from the outside is like, okay, I have to get married again and like have kids and keep a home and things like that, but I am realizing that I'm not really into that, and you have kind of shown me that through just our conversations and also what you're doing in the arena and things like that. And I don't know, I think I just love that storyline. It's so funny because Asher's such a scumbag, but like he's inadvertently like showing her that like there's more that she can have in her life. And it's just like it's very endearing. I just
Hmm.
I enjoy Viridia. I am finding myself 100% rooting for whatever their relationship may be. But like she says about her own mother, I just feel like it's going to be very difficult for her to kind of break out of this gilded cage. You know, the bars forged by the traditions of Roman men. And it's just going to be interesting. She's going to, for sure, try to defy her family and what is really the outcome of that, because Kasudi even says to Cornelia, like, oh, you know, Cornelia's saying, like, oh, she's, you know, fair, you know, whatever, of delicate disposition, whatever the words is that she uses. And Kasudi is kind of trying to be like, no, 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 like, she's totally her mother's daughter. Like, don't you worry about that.
I think you nailed the idea that they were trying to plant in our head, Kyle, in the episodes leading up to this, because you always talk about how they always talk about tradition and how it's so important. And, you know, the tradition of like being wed to a husband and starting a family, that was, you know, of course, what Verdi always thought. But the way that she phrases it, saying, you know, the world has more to offer, and your presentation of the woman in the sands in opposition of everything I have been taught in the Republic. That's just Asher, man. He's like, screw tradition, screw the gods. I do what I want to benefit. And the fact that she finds this inspiring is, you know, kind of endearing. And the way that Asher even responded by saying, like, you know, I feel so privileged just to play such a small part in that revelation for you. I was like, I love these two together. And Asher, I know him as like
Yeah.
a slime ball skis ball from Spartacus, but like he's actually like seems very serious here. And I love when he can show his softer side.
Was Asher the first domino in history allowing women to start being progressive and having rights and caring about their own things? Because that's what she basically says, like, you and Achilles' performance on the sands, like, that all contributed to this. So if she starts stepping up, like, and being her own woman and not wanting to just be thrown around as like an asset, we could say Asher had a part in all that, and that'd be cool. But jokes aside, just to close the loop here about their conversation, it gets sprinkled in, like, they go down and check on Achilles, and we mentioned, like, the new Medicus is there. That was like a hilarious scene the
Yeah.
first round before Verdi is there, because he can't speak the common tongue. And Chorus assumed that Asher could speak Greek, which he couldn't. He can only speak like broken market level Greek. It's Greek, right? It's not Syrian. It's not
Yeah.
the Syrian language. Yeah. So, and he can't. But another feather in the hat for Verdia, of course, she's just cool enough that she can speak multiple languages. So I just wanted to close it out there, because we do temporarily like go by Achilles, which caused the cool conversation we've been talking about.
I do have one question. So, in terms of Viridia's future, she's saying here, you know, I'm kind of realizing I don't really want to be just a wife. And I don't really want to be just a mother. You know, I kind of want more for that in my life. But, and we're kind of talking about her being like, we're excited about her in the context of that type of relationship. We're saying that, like, you know, we would love her as Asher's partner. And are we at all? I'm kind of, as we're having this conversation, thinking like maybe that's not her story then, and where it's, she has these feelings for Asher, but, you know, does this pull in like her soul, this like kind of desire, like actually like force her away from that a little bit? I just don't know. I feel like it is, if we us having this conversation of like, man, I just kind of want more from my life, and then is her story really to just be his wife?
So, what I'll say to push back on that is, I feel like you can categorize the relationships that we're traditionally seeing in Spartacus as like a husband and a wife. Like, the husband kind of owns the wife, as in that's almost every example we've ever seen. But I would almost categorize Batiatus and Lucretia, maybe not initially like episode one, but most of the series, they are partners. And to me, that's almost like a different way of having a marriage be part of your life, but not defining you. And I think like she could take almost a Lucretia path, where Lucretia had so much agency. She pulled so many strings. I know a lot of the Roman girls do, but it doesn't to me feel like Lucretia was seen as just like an asset to her husband. I think like she could take that path. But like if you take
Yeah.
a step back, yeah, like on paper, like she's just going to be a wife, and I don't see how that's avoidable. It's not like it's 2025, like she can just go out and like get a ludus of her own, really. But Yeah, it's a good question to pose though, of what could her possible paths forward be after saying things like, "Oh, you basically made me want to get my own independence," type of thing.
Yeah, I think I actually just read a book on like the evolution of the family since, you know, human society was a thing, and how like only recently the term sex love is like a thing where like people actually marry for love. And I think that's the exact great I would say connection to Lucretia and Batiatus, and where in this time period everything is political through the marriage. Of where, I mean, Titus, Quintus's dad, Batiatus's dad, is like, you know, he hated that he married Lucretia because she was beneath his station. It might almost be flipped here, and where Gabinius and Cassia are gonna hate that Viridia marries Ashur because he's beneath her station, but they just have this love, and it's just rare that they're able to kind of actually act on that. And I think her desires can still be fulfilled within this context. Like you're saying, I feel like, you know, being a Lanista, you know, a domina of this type of house would be, you know, new and exciting for her potentially. And being someone who is kind of maybe at the forefront of this, it's not really women's liberation movement, because at the end of the day, Achilles is like a novelty in the arena, but like part of that type of conversation, I think, is a good place for her
Yeah,
to be.
I could live in House Viridia. That sounds chill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Asher might have to take her name, but that's
that's
fine. I
fine.
would do it.
He might.
Yeah, Asher Gabinius. He'll work his way out to a third name eventually. Okay. I want to say that's everything we've got here. The last little bit I will say is that the Cornelia and Cassudia, to kind of wrap this in a bow again, about this whole political nature of marriage and all of those things. Cassudia actually has a little bit of pushback on Cornelia. So Cornelia is trying to get Cassudia to agree to the marriage with one of Caesar's men. And Cassudia is kind of pushing back, and where she's like, I don't really want to go against my husband. That would be quite the move against Pompey, because my husband is a known supporter, and that's kind of not really his interests. And I just thought it was interesting that Cassudia actually grows a little bit of a spine around Cornelia here. And it's kind of like, I'm not really super into that. I also love the angle of the kind of two-pronged attack that the House of Caesar can take, and where Cornelia is like, you know, on the battlefield of the women, of, you know, the political marriages and things like that for support. And then Caesar's, you know, in the realm of men, where he's going, probably marching with some soldiers to talk to Pompey and things like that. So they're just getting after from every angle.
Let's get a heat check. Who do you want to have a worse death? Cassudia or Cornelia?
Cornelia.
Oh, probably
Okay.
Cornelia. I feel like Cassudia still maybe has some hope out there. I feel like Cornelia is irredeemable.
Yeah,
Yep, I can get behind that.
definitely. And
yeah, that's definitely what's up.
I mean, even in this conversation, Kasudi is like the one being manipulated by, you know, the big evil, if you want to call it that way. And it's just, like you said, Kyle, I like the way that Kasudia kind of actually stands up for herself here because, again, the way they talk, they don't always speak plainly, like we got Asher saying later this episode. So Cornelius saying all these things like, oh, maybe Viridia could go with this guy from Caesar, you know, one of Caesar's men. And Kasudia straight up says, you're telling me to go against my husband right here. I don't know if I can do that. So I like the way that she just kind of like hits the brakes and it's like, yo, you're telling me to cross a boundary I'm not exactly comfortable with. Will she actually do it? I don't know. But the other thing, just so weird to me, that after Cornelia starts telling the gladiators to start jerking it, she's like, oh yeah, should we get Viridia? Like basically saying, oh, should we get your daughter in here to come watch this with us? That would be a fun family event. Like, interesting.
They're very sexually liberated, Paul. They don't
Okay.
they don't have the same types of insecurities that us modern day folk have around those things.
Okay. That's a good way of putting it because
Yeah.
I feel like
I guess that's just the way it goes. All right. So I think the next big conversation we probably really want to have is this Asher and Gabinius talk that they have over at Gabinius's villa. But just to kind of put the pieces in place for maybe conversations later on, just some things that happen. I'll just run through them so we say them out loud, and then we can kind of move on from them. But we just have again, the Messi and Hilaria kind of rivalry is deepening here. I only call this out because I love Hilaria saying like, and you're not complaining about like you're doing so without complaint. And like she wants her to like complain about Cornelia, and Messi is like, you know, I don't mind it at all. And she also, they have the kind of interaction where Hilaria asks her, hey, has she been saying anything? And Messi is like, nope. And it's clearly a lie. So that's, again, just more rivalry brewing between the two of them. And then we just have the actual truth of what Doctori and Oppert are thinking. So they have a conversation. Doctori's into now leaving with Oppiter, and Oppiter then offers all of his shite to Ashur. So Ashur's kind of mulling that over as he moves into this conversation with Gabinius. And I love these two. I'll say it.
Mm-hmm.
I love these two together. This is hopefully a little preview, you know, a little father and son, you know, father-in-law, son-in-law action. These could be quite a dynamic duo if they actually make things official and run some shit in Capu if they really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're going to talk through a couple scenes here, I guess. I just think that it's very smart, of course, to say that he knows Ashur doesn't have a lot of power right now, but he is vengeful and he'll do things to me if I just blindly leave with you. But then when they bring the offer to him the next day, I don't know if it's the same night or whatever, fucking cunts. He just right away, he's just so mad at them for trying to make a deal behind his back. And then as soon as Oppiter brings up like what he'll be giving to him, he like pauses for a second, has to still act mad, but is so just thinking through all the benefits of this because I mean, us just having played Spartacus, the board game, I just wow, the amount of guards and slaves that he's getting to his house. Wow, the coin. He just can't basically say no to that. A couple things happen this day that we're going to talk through that push him even further towards that, which is like the market scene and everything. But just a great way to just encapsulate how Ashur would react. Chorus being responsible about knowing the person he's been working for, and just it was a good setup for all of this. I guess we can kind of just go right into that if you want. Like, do you want to go to Gabinius' house?
Yeah, I honestly think it could be two conversations because the Gabinius conversation, we don't learn like a whole lot there. It's kind of just Gabinius advising Ashur almost in a way. And then we have the results of that is cocky Ashur then in the market with Proculus, which goes horribly. He's such an idiot, but it's classic Ashur. So I think those two things can kind of be combined into one conversation.
Yeah, I'm just happy that Gabinius is, he even says, like, if I was in your position, I'd probably do the same exact thing that you're doing, which is almost openly talking against Caesar, but still saying that he's loyal to Caesar's upper being Crassus, of course. So they're on the same page. And I feel like every time they get together and it's just them two with nobody else around to influence them, they walk away from the scenes being on the same page. And it is cool having like this, because Gabinius owes Ashur everything for saving his family still, and he is showing that in the way that he's like genuinely listening to him and agreeing with a lot of his viewpoints. So they're just a good pairing, like you're saying. It's good when they're on screen together, and I hope we get a lot more of them.
I like how the result of this Gabinius and Ashur conversation makes me think that Gabinius is kind of an ally here, an anti-Cornelia ally, because he is kind of openly expressing his displeasure with her scheming, you know, and I think he definitely appreciates Ashur coming to him with this level of honesty of like, man, she sent me here for this. Like, I don't really agree with it, but like she wanted me to come here and talk to you about this. And then the second thing I have about this conversation in particular is they're doing a lot of being very explicit about, you know, Caesar does what Caesar wants. Caesar does what Caesar wants to get what Caesar wants. And I'm just thinking, I'm anticipating quite a wrinkle, some left turn, some maybe double crossing that's going to happen in this Caesar and Pompey interaction whenever they have this discussion in Sinuessa and Valle, because I think eventually we're going to have to get to a point where Caesar is his own man. You know, he's not Crassus's man. And I feel like this could be the start of that. And I'm just looking forward to that because I have expressed it multiple times before that I just really like all that stuff that's happening in the background.
That has to be the pathway to multiple seasons with Caesar around.
Yeah, I would
Something
agree.
Like that.
Multiple seasons feels crazy. More than two feels wild.
I would assume that he wrote this season with an ending where it could probably just fade into sunset, but leave the door open with people like Viridia and Caesar. Like he's probably not going to kill everybody off. So I think there'll be a path. But yeah, I agree.
I'm stuck in the
Yeah.
mindset that it's still Spartacus, where it's like, okay, they're gonna tie it into actual history, but you got to remember, talking to myself here, this is a what if spin-off world where Asher did you know s- reset the line of history. So could they just make it so they kill everybody? Like Caesar dies. Caesar could die at the end of this season. Who knows? Rome could go into
Mhm.
chaos. But I kind of like that aspect of like historical fiction, but now it's leaning more into the fiction aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Caesar, Crassus, Pompey all should have, you know, much more time in them. Maybe, a decade and a half, 2 decades, according to the actual timeline of history. And those are just rough estimates for me off the top of my head. But I wouldn't mind at all a little curveball here,
Mhm.
and I love the idea of Asher just being involved in that power struggle between the three of them, because it's really a power struggle for like the heart of the Republic and for all of it. All of the chips are on the table at this point, and somehow Asher's involved in that, and that's just funny to think about. But yeah, I think we maybe can move away
Mhm.
from Capua itself, just the way that like the original series did, maybe in future seasons.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go to the market scene with Asher, let's go back and clean up just everything to do with the gladiators, and which is mostly just talking up through the championship, or I guess the tournament, which I don't even know if we said it on podcast. I think we said it before we started recording that it was so obvious to me at
Yeah,
least, and I think you guys agree of what was going to happen here. Like, why would they not assume Tarkon was the best? Why even hold the competition because he's so much better than everybody else? And it ends up being, we got the couple of scenes here or there of the two people fighting. Paul, I was ready to think something crazy was going to happen because the last episode you predicted Arado was going to die, and he got matched up here. Maybe he falls, trips, cracks his neck or something. You get a point. Didn't happen though. Everything went pretty smooth. And yeah, I mean, what other things do you guys want to throw out there? Because this is also when the conversations around elevating Kelidus to Doctore in place of course happens, and all that kind of gets announced here. But yeah, that just quickly summarized it all. It wasn't too much action. It wasn't too much screen time either.
I think there was a way to show in another way just kind of how distracted Doctore is, and just how kind of little involvement he's kind of had recently, where he even asks Asher, like, all right, who should it be? And Asher's like, isn't that your fucking job, bro? Like,
Mhm.
what's up with that? And then he's like, tournament, let's get it.
Yeah,
Like, that's, I think, the way I'm gonna take it, the way it all went down. And then the callous of it all, I ended, I think, maybe I guess it must have been last episode, two ago at most, saying, Achilea obviously likes women. Her and Calidus are just boys. And he is worrying me is not the term, worrying me in the sense that I might be incorrect, but he might have a little crush here
Mhm.
because he's asking about her a lot. Even Tarkon's like, "What's good, bro?" And Doctore's like, "Chill out." They're all kind of like clocking what's going on with him. So those are my two like the main takeaways.
Yeah, and that's what
Mhm.
I was saying. Last episode, not the biggest fan that Calidus was like, I don't want to do this, Achillea. Like, I'm married to the arena and glory. I can't have like a relationship. And she's like, dude, this isn't about feelings. This is about the night before. Immediately he catches feelings. And I can't blame him.
Mhm.
You can't control your feelings, but it's just funny to see his mindset go from glory in the arena to all I can think about is Achillea. And he's even lying to Tarkon saying like I fight for this house when he is fighting for the house, but that doesn't seem to be his number one priority right now. So like you said, even Tarkon's picking up on it, saying, why are you fighting for her?
Maybe like father, like son, a little bit, or like son, like father, or either way, because Tarkon's a little lover boy himself. So maybe that's something he gets from his pops.
And he's the one who reaps all the benefits because he's just the next up to be champion, which I wouldn't even be that hype about. Like everybody's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you really didn't win. Like they just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
need
you're
to hold
third.
the competition. But the one question I have for you guys, I felt that this was in a great way a direct parallel to season 2, the prequel seasons, Anameus' rise to Doctore, in where it went the opposite way, where Anameus was so against the idea of giving up the glory in the arena. He thought he was recovered and he wanted to get back in there, but then Badiada's like, your time's done. Kel just took it on the chin and didn't even complain. It seems like he was very willing to give up those days. I don't know if that's because of how much he cares about Achillea. That feels off character. I don't want to attribute it to that. I just want to attribute it to the fact that he's willing to let his son take the spotlight, and he's had his moments, and like, why not be the Doctore? You get a lot of honor there, and it seems to be something he cares about. Did you pick up on anything else with that whole, just him taking the decision on the chin?
It's weird that you say that he wants his son to take the spotlight, because I think you're right. Like he said, like, earlier in the season, I'm so happy we can fight together on the sands. But what Calidus has been saying lately, especially during this fight, he goes, I will win this fight and I will hold the title as champion to return to Achillea when she like blesses the sands once more. So it's almost like he truly believes that Achillea is the champion of the house and doesn't really want Tarkhan to be the champion right now. I don't know if it's he doesn't think he deserves it, because obviously Tarkhan's still hot-headed and still has a lot to learn, but it's this weird wedge in the relationship, because they're hugging and they're fighting together and they're father and son, but Calidus, for better or worse, believes that Tarkhan isn't ready to be in the arena yet. So I don't know. It's really complicated, and of course, throwing feelings into the mix of it for Calidus doesn't help.
Yeah, I think he's the ultimate company man,
Okay.
in where that's the decision. So he's not going to go against it. He's skipping ahead a little bit, and we can just take like, a little bite-sized piece off of maybe one of the final conversations where like he kind of comes to Doctore and he asks him, is it actually possible to move past, the desire for glory in the arena, and the bloodshed and all of that. And Doctore responds with, for one whose worth transcends value of any victory or cheering crowd. And I immediately wrote in my notes, like, is that Achillea? Is that what they're trying to show us here a little bit? So I think that there's something, I mean, there obviously has been something brewing in this relationship triangle, as Paul likes to say. And it's only heating up now with these kind of musical chairs of positions and all of those things. So we're just going to have to see. And I think that Calidus now has plummeted, in my opinion, in the like to die odds, and Tarkhan has now shot up, because I just feel like the story being like now Calidus is the actual Doctore, and like Tarkhan's still not learning and dying in the arena would be like so heartbreaking to him, and where like even within the position of Doctore, he still couldn't teach him to kind of get over these things. And I'm just anticipating heartbreak through this, and that seems like a very likely path for it. All right,
Good to move on.
I think the thing we can move into now is going to be Ashur in the market. So hot off of meeting with his best boy toy Gabinius, where they're kind of arm in arm, they're of singular mind about what he should do with Opiter's offer, and now he's walking around like, his balls are too big for his britches, because he runs into Proculus. Proculus comes with, I would say, a very generous offer, and Ashur just proceeds to piss on him, and he kind of lets slip too why, like an idiot, and then that kind of snowballs into what is kind of the final scene, and it's just like, damn, brother.
So let me ask, was the offer, because their words are not simple, even when they're speaking plainly, it's still not simple for us. Was the offer that they were essentially just going to prop up Achillea to make easy money?
Yeah.
It's just like, was it throw Matt, like give her fodder to win and then just bet on the crazy odds of just a female? Okay, that's what I took it as. And he could have still shit all over Proculus and then at the end been like, okay, we can think of something here. But he had to just take it so freaking far that, the brothers Ferox are there, like, it was just always going to inevitably have some, like, you saw the look on Proculus's face as he walked away. Like, he just slighted him so badly. Like, he had to act and do something back. I mean, what he did back, I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly and be so devastating. And I actually love this because this is the prime, just picturesque version of what Badiatus has done in the past.
Yeah.
Granted, he didn't necessarily learn from Badiatus, I guess, but I guess Badiatus learned a lot of those lessons in the prequel season before Ashur anyway, or I guess part of Ashur. So yeah, this is why we love it. It's hard to see it happen to our characters every once in a while, but they're all spiteful, these Romans, and they have to get their blood revenge, and it's moving in the right direction to keep the three brothers still relevant, because it seems like that's going to be a Primus at some point, right? Like they're dead. They're going to die this season by Achillea most likely. And I thought we could have bypassed them almost, where we just didn't need them anymore because she fought above their status when she fought in the last Primus. But this kind of brings them back front and center, where they're still going to be a main enemy that Asher's going to have to make sure his gladiators take care of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, I gotta like evaluate Proculus because of this initial offer. Like, I didn't think he was going to be just able to straight up go to Ashur and be like, all right, look, we were going at each other's throats back in the day, but I recognize that
back in the day.
2 days ago, I recognize that Achillea ignites this city and we can both benefit from that. So what do you say? So I really I appreciate Proculus for being that smart. I still think he's a scumbag. And Ashur, like, almost like you're saying, he could have insulted him so much without giving away an actual name. And, in Ashur's defense, he brings up Opiter's name, but he doesn't say what he owns that Opiter wants so badly. But Proculus saw Opiter jerking Chorus off at the party. So Proculus knows exactly what Opiter wants.
Forgot about that.
Because what an unforced error. Just imply that it's Crassus. Everyone knows that the richest man in the Republic is, your patron, right? Yeah, whatever. You're his man. Like, imply that. But Ashur's this is the first time he's kind of feeling like the gods are, letting his cheeks chill. So it's just, he's on top of his horse. He wants to brag before it's even, the ink is dry on the contract and stuff. And it's just
letting his cheeks chill is crazy.
I mean, it's true. That's what's happening, though.
Jupiter's cock has been mean to Ashur his whole life.
Yeah, but right. He just, he swats it away from his own cheeks, and it just angles right towards the House of Opiter, and it's just tough. And
Jupiter went for a cup of water. Now he's back in the bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, because this throws such a wrench in just everything. I cannot wait to watch the next episode and see what the kind of aftermath of this is, because the last actual scene, and I know that the last conversation we will have will be about Achillea and all that stuff, but the last scene we have here is like Doctore, dude. He's got a little guard of honor. All the boys are clapping him up as he leaves the villa. He's got his little pack on, and Ashur kind of sends him away. And what the hell is his next steps? I mean, is he going to get in the arena? I mean, he's a free man. Can a free man just sign up and be like, I want those three brothers right now? Give it to me. The crowd of Cappy will love it. Like, I want them tomorrow at sunrise.
It's a good question, because it feels like Proculus's leverage is now completely gone, right? Like, what else can he hold over him now that Opiter is now dead? And I guess I don't even think it would be leverage to be like, all right, well, Chorus likes men. Like, that wouldn't even phase Ashur, I don't think. So I don't know what he'll do, but I think he's going to be full team revenge and will be willing to be Ashur's blade. So now he is going to be assumed to not be under House of Ashur anymore, if that deal actually goes through to the public, that he can be somebody in the shadows that does Ashur's bidding, something that he wouldn't have done previously. But now that his lover is dead, he would probably be willing to go that far. And he's obviously a great fighter if he's a Doctor with history and stuff. So he could be a wild card in the best way possible. I can't see how else it plays out. And yeah, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I think death vibes for Chorus are going way up now by the end of the season, because he's going to go out in a blaze of glory of revenging his love. But what I'm worried about a little bit in the immediate aftermath of all this is Chorus going to blame Ashur? I want to say in the beginning he's going to say, Ashur, what the hell? We talked about this. We gave you everything. Why did you do this? And Ashur's going to have to convince him that he didn't retaliate. maybe he puts it together, Ashur that is, that he revealed to Proculus too much in the market. I don't know if that's going to be an immediate connection, but I think that Chorus is obviously going to turn his rage and frustration to whoever's in his targets first. Going to be Ashur. It's going to make sense a little bit. So I don't think anything's going to like really happen though, because end of the day, I think Chorus is going to come to his senses and be, like you said, kind of Ashur's blade of
Mhm.
vengeance in the shadows to do the dirty work.
Mm.
I don't I don't think Chorus would be naive enough to think Ashur was stupid enough to essentially wipe out all the assets that he was about to be handed for free. Like, what would the benefit there be if he was just about to be handed all this power? So if that does last, I see that lasting for like a scene.
Yeah, they still have the idea that Proculus also tried to kill him in the streets. They still think that was Proculus. They have no
True.
idea that it was Casudius. So I feel like there's enough there at the very least for Ashur to kind of convince him in the moment if it arises. That would be sad to see though, these two. They've been like at each other's necks in like a business like kind of like brothers in a way, like butting heads aspect, but that would be like legit blood, would be, exactly what Chorus wants in this situation. So I can see that getting a little out of hand.
We didn't get to the scene yet, but that also kind of. So at the end, when Achillea wakes up, whatever, surprise, we see Chorus and Ashur turn to each other and they're like, I don't care for you. And Chorus is like, I don't care for you either. And it's like, first of all,
Yeah.
where is this coming from? And then two, maybe that could play into the divisive wedge after the Opter death comes. But like you said, I don't really expect it to be a long-term divide. I think it's just going to be the immediate repercussion.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one of their best moments that they have together for the whole season up to this point where Ashur says, all right, last thing before you go, like, can you please like help me pray? Like, I don't know how to do this essentially. And it's cool. Like they do the goat blood sacrifice and then they get down together and it works. I mean, coincidence, whatever. She wakes up in this moment. We're going to talk about her scenes, of course. But this was a good moment for them. I really just can't see myself being satisfied, of course, actually takes any action against Ashur, even if it's like in a fit of just like emotional rage. Just it seems so much more satisfying to just have Chorus go hothead for Ashur and help do whatever he wants to do to get back at Proculus.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree, but they definitely laid a lot of hints here. The interactions that they have throughout this episode are kind of back and forth of, where Doctori's upset that Ashur didn't tell him about the Legion Pirate scheme, and Ashur's like, fuck you, you know what I want you to know. And then they kind of also are kind of chilling, and when Ashur gives him the night off and he's like, hopefully it's to, to satisfy little Doctor and whatever. And then the prayer scene also was odd to me because the only thing I can think of is that like Doctor is the only other free man in the villa. So like he wasn't really gonna ask a slave to pray with him, so like it kind of had to be him because it's like Dr. Horry doesn't come off as like religious in any type of way that I remember. So I guess it was just like the only guy for it.
Well, I think the default view is everybody is religious unless you're specifically not like Ashur.
Yeah,
I was just like,
yeah. I mean,
what did Chorus even do? He didn't even cut the goat's neck. Like that was all Ashur. He like basically Ashur just wanted a witness to somebody to like watch him pray over Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like the closest thing he has to a friend, because all the other, Halara's, he owns.
But then
her.
why would he look directly at him and say, like, I still do not care for you? That's just such a weird thing.
I think that was them like being bros.
So they do care for each other?
Like, like you're still a pussy.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
at the end
yeah.
they have like an intimate moment, but
Yeah.
you can't actually be intimate with your bro. You gotta throw on like, you're still a little bitch.
I will completely turn how I view their relationship if that was just them teasing each other and playing with each other. I just thought they were serious in that moment.
Well, here's a good test. Is next scene that we get with Chorus, if he's running up to Ashur and putting a knife to his neck, then he was truthful about never liking him, didn't trust him, and would be willing to kill him. But if he goes back to Ashur and says like, we need to get revenge, I can take it like they were bros. They were as close as bros can be without actually being bros. Like
Yeah,
they
but they
don't
went
they
through
still don't
trials and
like each other,
tribulations
but
together.
yeah,
Yeah,
they've
they were
done
kind of
things. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
business partners, but I think over that relationship, you get a little feelings for each other in some ways.
Otherwise, why would he have reacted so viscerally to the idea of giving chorus to Operator earlier? Like
Yeah.
he sees the value in him, and they have their moments. But I don't know. We're gonna
Yeah.
find out right in episode 7.
No, 100%. And the last thing I guess we got to talk about before we get there is going to be Akelia
Mm-hmm.
and her powering through this wound, this treatment, this struggle, these visions that they've been teasing us with. We kind of get the full picture. Maybe, maybe it's 95% of the picture. I don't know if there's a little bit more to tell here. I think we can infer, at least I'm inferring, that it seemed to be a daughter to me. Accidental death, never good to see that type of situation. Can only imagine the type of pain, regret, that she was putting on herself for that situation. So I think the way that she's acting makes a lot of sense. It's nice to kind of get this truth out here now, a little bit halfway through the season, and then we can kind of see what happens in the future because she's made this, I guess, breakthrough in a way.
It's pretty basic. There's not too
Yeah.
many layers here yet. But Kyle, I remember you bringing this up earlier. And do you remember what her quote is about how she became a slave? Didn't she say like I didn't lose to the Romans or
I'm
something? There was a
unworthy.
quote there.
She's
Yeah.
and
Both of those
yeah, I
things.
think she says like I didn't lose. So maybe I also thought it was like a younger sister, could easily be a daughter. Either way,
Yeah.
still same thing. She's so distraught that she's just kind of captured. Like she fought and killed all the guards that were around her, and they also weren't
Hmm.
Romans. It looked like it was, I don't know, another tribe, but maybe she was just became catatonic after that. Maybe we'll get the direct aftermath. But if I'm honest, I really, really, really liked this flashback because they almost fooled us a lot. They were showing us these scars on her hand, and we see how she gets the scars on her hand, and we see her looking at her hand the whole show almost in remorse. And we think it's the scars, but the scars are a facade. She's looking at her hand because that's the hand that she killed her daughter slash sister with, not the scars and everything like that. So I thought it was just a genius way of, okay, yeah, we know it's coming. Something traumatic happened in her flashback that gave her these scars, but it's not the scars. It's the hand that killed her own family. So I thought that was genius.
Hmm. And it was cool to see the scenery of where she's from because that's so just foreign compared to the Roman setting of like wherever her home is. But it's also a cool flashback, or I guess tie into I think it's episode 1 of season 1 when Spartacus has a similar type of kill on a Roman with the spear launch, but his goes the right way, whereas obviously Achilles goes as poorly as it possibly could have. But yeah, I can't determine. I walked away from that thinking it was sister, but it totally could have been
Mhm.
daughter. I don't know. I don't know if it even matters, but maybe we'll learn.
Yeah, I guess we'll probably find out in a little bit of detail. The quote that she has in episode 3 when Asher's kind of saying like, "Why do you fail? Why do you fail?" And she says, "Because I stand unworthy, my duty forsaken."
Hmm.
Which
My
maybe
duty
leads
of like
me,
caring for my daughter.
yeah, that kind of lends me more towards daughter
Yeah.
in that way. I think an somewhat underrated aspect of this is the hand is injured. She was using two swords. We see that a spear is kind of her no weapon. It seems like I feel like this is going to be like an overcoming the trauma,
Hmm.
putting the past in the past, truly looking towards the future. And, what's done is done. She's lost what she's lost, but she still has opportunity, as Asher would say, in the future, in the now. And I'm feeling like she's going to end up as a spear fighter.
Yeah, I love that because it's unrealistic to make her fight with two swords again anytime soon without like a notable plot time skip.
So you think it's going to be like Perrin picking up the axe is going to be Achilles going to pick up this?
Mm.
Trillion
Okay.
percent. Yep.
Oh, that's
Yep.
great.
The
Oh,
music, it's going to be, this triumphant moment of like, she's not running from the past. She's not cowering away from it. She's kind of taking control of it. She's taking control of her life. as much as she can, obviously, because she is unfortunately a slave.
Like, how pissed would you guys be if she, like, they don't even comment on it and like time has passed and she just uses 2 swords again?
I'll be mad.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
tell how much time if they like make a reason for like 6 months to pass, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what it'll
I
take.
guess that
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, that hand was split in half now that I think about it. So it would take a minute for her to get like full function back. So I dig it.
Dude, I cut like a piece of my thumb off cooking one time, like the tiniest little piece, and that shit couldn't push 100% for like 4 months. Like there's no way. Her hand was like you could have split it in half, and like it dangled both sides of how split her injury was. So you know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if she'll be able to use it at all.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like, it might just
yeah.
be like a little bit of a lame hand, and that's her shield arm.
That would be wild.
You know, that's what I'm kind of leaning towards. My last piece before we get into the Death Flag BKM stuff is that the death of Operator, and honestly, him leaving or him dying, I guess technically the outcome is the same in the sense that he's no longer in Capua. There's an opening in the hey, come here and bang my gladiators industry. And Cornelia seems quite interested in filling that for her own self. But I feel like, we talked about that when Abiter brings it up of House Batiatus used to get down like that to great success. And it seems like maybe the House of Caesar is going to be filling that need for the elite citizens of Capua. So it just sets us up for a lot of fun interactions like that in the future. Lots of scheming, backstabbing, blackmailing, all of that stuff. So feels like we're right where we want to be here going into episode 7.
Love it.
Okay. Plant your death flag segment. Just a reminder, the quick rules are we're just trying to predict who will die in the immediate next episode. And the only rules we gave ourselves are that you're not allowed to pick somebody back-to-back weeks, and we switch the orders up every single week. So it's for this week, it's going to be Paul, me, then Kyle. So yeah, hand it over to you, Paul. Oh wait, and let me remind you who we picked last week, which was Kyle picked. Yeah, Kyle picked Messia, Paul picked Dorado, and I picked Cornelia. We're 0 for 6 or 0 for 9, however long we've been doing this, we have not hit yet. So hoping that this is going to be the first time we get one of these right. So over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I was freaking out earlier this episode. Luke, you already said it when Dorado got picked for the games, and then Cornelia was like, "Oh, this is going to be entertainment." I was like, "Death in front of all the nobles," but did not go that way. So anyway, I think I'm going to go Messia after all of the interactions and slights and looks that we have between Holara and Messia this episode. I feel like it's just coming to a head and it's just going to boil over and easily just could be a few stabs right into Messia, especially with Messia being like Cornelia's lapdog at this point. So I'm saying Messia is going to die.
Okay, I got that down. I'm going to take all 3 of the brothers Ferox are going to die next episode. After I wanted to do Proculus, but after this episode, I feel like the brothers need to die first, and Proculus could die immediately after. It could both be this episode, but I think some form of revenge is going to happen, and it could be in the form of the brothers. So I'll take the brothers as one entity.
Ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Doctore.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, okay.
He's not going to be thinking, straight. He's not going to be coming into any battle with patience. I think he's going to come in emotion, passion, and the brothers Ferox are going to take him out when he tries to get his revenge. And that's going to heat them up as a villain. It's going to make the House of Ashur even want to, defeat them even more. The honor of their house, they have to reclaim it for sure after something like that happens. So I'll take Doctore.
Okay, noted.
Chorus, I guess now.
Yeah.
He's always going to be Doctore. Caldus is always going to be Caldus. Come on.
True.
That's a good guess.
I think you are going to be the king of guessing a death in an episode early because Messi is going to die next episode, and then Chorus is going to die in the finale. But we shall see. Anyway, BKM, Ban Kill Mary. So we kind of went through a lot of the characters already, and I was thinking about groupings, and I was like, what can I do here? And then I thought about, what about thruples, right? That would be fun. So
Okay.
Couple BKM. We're gonna go Badiatus and Lucretia from OG Spartacus. We're gonna go Caesar and Cornelia. And then for our third power couple, we're going to go Gaius Claudius Glaber and Alithia. So we got 2 throwback couples this time around.
Okay,
I'm
and
going first, right?
no, we've been following the pattern of same as the death flag. So Paul, you're actually gonna whoever presents the BKM is gonna go first.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, I'm just such Badiatus and Lucretia fan. I feel like for nostalgia's sake, I will be their thruple. And then this is where it's tough because I think I'm just gonna go Caesar and Cornelia for straight up, gorgeous looking people, I guess. And then we'll kill Gaius Claudius Glaber and Alithia because we got such a history there. I will drop the axe on them.
I just don't have anything interesting to add. Like I'm gonna pick the same selection as you. There's no chance in hell I would. Like the first thing I wrote down was marry Badiatus and Lucretia. Like hell yeah. And then like you're saying, like Caesar and Cornelia are just fantastic to look at as people. And if there's one person that in the history of Spartacus that I would personally love to kill, it's Glaber every single time. Like he is number one on my hit list, no matter what season we're talking about, no matter what anything Spartacus related. My hatred for him, you just think about how the early season 1 Spartacus stuff happened and how he set everything in motion. He's always on the death list. So I don't have anything interesting to add. We got the same answer. Kyle, how about you?
I think I might switch up the Glaber and the Caesar. I feel like Glaber's a little bit of a limp dick. And, Caesar, I feel like he would just outshine you completely. Well, like Glaber and Alithia have like a little bit of, there's some fracturing going on in that marriage. So I think I might actually marry Glaber and Alithia, and then me and her might be able to work it where it's just the two of us. We can kind of get rid of him, because she already tried to dump him off in season 3 or 4 in the original series. I then think Badiatus and Lucretia need me a piece of that. So we're going to ban Badiatus and Lucretia at one of them parties for sure. And then, I think I might kill Caesar and Cornelia. I think the satisfaction from killing Cornelia. And then I can kind of go around and say, I killed Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll flaunt that around town. I feel like marrying Badiatus and Lucretia is tough because they're so in love. You would just end up being like the third for sure. You might end up just, being, what is Nasir? Tiberius when we first meet Nasir in the 3rd season, where he just is the slave that has to bang the old dude in the ass so he can actually come. That might end up being you with Badiatus and Lucretia.
Wow. Such different viewpoints coming in. I love it. I really thought that somebody was going to marry Caesar and Cornelia just for the absolute power that you would have. You could literally do anything. You could tell Ashur to get naked if you wanted to, if you were married to those two.
Well, that was a good one, though.
Olivia dad has a decent amount of power. He's just a senator, though. I feel like Cornelia's dad was like, 4-time consul, general of Rome. So that's a little bit more respect.
I love that you're trying to box Glaber out. You're just...
Oh, 100%. He would be the easiest one to throw a little hip into and be like, all right, brother, get out of here. You know what I mean?
He becomes the cock.
Yeah. And then, like you said, either last episode or 2 episodes ago, like, it's the only way I can be close to Spartacus.
Yeah. There you go.
Eskimo bros with the ultimate, bro.
It's true.
All right. That is it. That's episode 6. Empty things. It's not an empty thing. The Bingetown TV Discord. You should join it. If you want to talk about Spartacus, if you want to talk about Fallout, if you want to talk about industry, if you want to talk about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, if you want to talk about anything that you're watching on television, I said those 4 shows because that's the coverage that's going on in Binge Empire currently and within the next month. But we're more than that. We talk about TV shows in the Discord endlessly, all day, probably every day. So if you want to get more into the community itself, if you enjoy the coverage, if you think that we're chill, you like our takes on things, or you want to challenge some takes on things, the Discord is the best way to do that, to talk theories, to just talk with like-minded people about TV and movies. I believe the invite link is going to be in the episode description, however you are consuming this current episode. Another shout out is going to be to our additional feeds. So Binge Empire, we always say this. Binge Empire is just a part of the Bingetown TV podcast network. The other big feed that's part of our network is going to be The Core. So The Core covers everything Apple TV. So Binge Empire, you might have been able to pick up. We're doing a lot of these just big name TV shows that are out there. But everything that's Apple TV focused is going to be on our feed called The Core. These two, along with our fearless leader, Jim, just wrapped up Pluribus over on Apple TV. Not entirely sure. I believe Hijack is coming on Apple TV. I also know Shrinking is coming on Apple TV. And then Your Friends and Neighbors, I know, is coming back in the spring on Apple TV. So just a little bit of a sampler platter there for the type of shows that we cover over on The Core. And I'm also going to shout out lastly here, Unreal. Unreal is a third feed on the Bingetown TV podcast network. We are about to start Traders over on Peacock. US season 4 coverage will start, I believe, in probably a little bit less than a week, which is exciting. That's just a fun show. We like it. We laugh. We talk. We gossip. Just a good time there. So all of those, as always, just providing you other examples of other shows of ours that you can get into, you can enjoy, and you can listen to, and then provide us feedback on. So for the last time this episode, we're Binge Empire. We appreciate you guys listening, and we will be right back here next week covering Spartacus, episode 7, whatever it may be named.